Welcome. I'm Dilip. I'm the North American Regional Coordinator for the International Vegetarian Union. I've been teaching vegan cooking for many years now. I love cooking vegan. It's all I cook, and I'm happy to share one of my favorite dishes with you. We're going to be making a limed marinated jerked seitan, which has lots of interesting subtle flavors that get married together in the marinade and then get cooked together in the saute. I think you'll enjoy this. It has a really interesting citrus flavor to it, and the combination with the savory seitan and the various spices makes it a very nice meal. The first step is to prepare the marinade, and ideally you'd like to do that the night before. So the ingredients are about 8 ounces of seitan. Most commercial packages are about 8 ounces, sliced thinly. You need about 10 or a dozen oregano leaves. You need a couple cloves of garlic, and you need to juice some limes. Here, you probably would use 1 or 2 limes for this dish. So seitan is a product I really enjoy cooking with. You can make it from scratch, or you can buy it prepared. It's high in protein, low in fat. It's a good source of iron, and it's low in carbohydrates. It adds a nice texture to a lot of dishes. So to prepare the marinade, you want to juice 1 or 2 limes, and you can use lemons if you'd like. You want to press in a garlic press 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, and you can use some judgment. If you really like garlic, go ahead and put 4 or 5 in, but 2 or 3 is sufficient. And then you want about 10 leaves of oregano, fresh oregano, and ideally just strip the leaves from the stem and put it in the marinade. If you're patient, hand rip the leaves in half so you'll get a little more flavor, more surface area. If you don't have access to fresh herbs, dried oregano is okay, so about 1/8 of a teaspoon of oregano. Remember, dried herbs are much more concentrated than fresh. So the notion of jerk is a great idea. It comes from Jamaica. It's been used for many years in Jamaica. It adds a nice fiery taste to food, and you can temper it. It does not have to be very hot. To make a jerk, you use red chili powder. That's, of course, the most important ingredient. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon, but you can use less, and if you like it really hot, use a little bit more. The next key ingredient is garlic. You want granulated garlic, about 1/4 teaspoon of that. My cooking doesn't tend to have a lot of salt, but the jerk seasoning benefits from a little bit of salt. I'd say try 1/8 of a teaspoon. You can always add more salt at the table. Dried oregano. You'd like about 1/8 of a teaspoon of the dried oregano. Allspice, 1/8 of a teaspoon of that, so about 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. A lot of chefs pride themselves on their own secret jerk seasoning mixture, so mix it up a little bit. Try some variation on what I've shown you and make it your own secret. Some of the better grocery stores have jerk seasoning mixtures that are pre-made. There's 2 ways to prepare this dish. The first way, you would saute the seitan and the vegetables separately. You want the seitan to get nice and crispy, brown, and then you would dredge it in the jerk seasoning. And if the vegetables aren't ready, you would keep it warm, perhaps in a toaster oven. And then, of course, the vegetables, and at the end you would mix them together. The advantage of this technique is that the seitan is more crispy, and you isolate the spicy jerk taste, and then you have this buffer of vegetables. It's a nice mouthfeel. The second way, which is easier and which is how I will demonstrate the dish for you now, is to do it all together. You start sauteing the seitan, and then over time, as the seitan starts turning color, you start introducing some of the other ingredients until they're all in the pan, and when they're all done, that's when you add the jerk seasoning. Let me talk a little bit about the vegetables you can use in this dish. Today we'll be using kale, stem and leaf, both, onion, and bell pepper. Other vegetables you can use are Brussels sprouts, go very well with this dish, spinach, any number of other vegetables. The first step is to prepare your pan. I like to use cast iron. You want to put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil into the pan, and you want to bring the heat to medium-high so the oil begins to get warm. You can proceed when a little piece of onion starts sizzling. You do not want to start cooking before that. At that point, you want to drain the marinade from the seitan. You do not want to put the marinade in the pan, and you want to lay the seitan, ideally, as a single layer in the pan. And you want to stir occasionally. And you want to cook for maybe 4 to 5 minutes until the seitan starts turning light brown. At that point, what you want is you want to add the kale stalks. You're going to be using 2 or 3 stalks of kale, so you'll want to cut the stems into roughly ½ pieces, and you'll toss them into the pan and stir. A minute or so later, go ahead and add half of an onion that has been diced into about a 3/8 inch dice, and cook for a few more minutes until the onion begins to turn clear. You do not want the onion to caramelize yet. Then what you'll want to do is you'll want to add the pepper. You want strips, but you want reasonably small strips. As a guide, I might suggest 3/8 inch by 3/4 inch, roughly. Put the pepper in, 1 pepper. Cook it about 3 minutes until the pepper is softened and the onion is beginning to caramelize. It'll begin to turn a little bit brown. At that point, take the kale, the leaves only, hand tear them into roughly 1-inch squares, roughly. Put the kale into the pan, stir until the kale cooks down, maybe a minute and a half, it doesn't take long, maybe 2 minutes. And then mix in the jerk seasoning, and you are done. And a final thought is, in the last minute of your saute, zest a lime. You only need about 1/8 teaspoon, sprinkle that in, and that will complement the flavor of the lime marinade. Lime marinated jerk seitan.